a very qualified and experienced panel. I recognize some of the speakers today who've spoken before on our panels. So, you know, we are a trusted group here. So take it that what they say actually, you know, there's a lot of substance behind it. So I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to hand over to Selin Hanım, who's going to moderate the panel, and I'll ask her to introduce her panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome everybody to our panel discussion on post-June 2021 scenarios for the Turkish renewable energy market as the YEKTEM feed-in tariff mechanism will come to an end. This is Selin Ünal, and I'm the moderator of this panel. I work as Business Development Manager at TÜRTEF, Turkey's Sustainable Energy Financing Facility, which is a program of EBRD, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. We have 4 distinguished speakers today who will provide us valuable insights on the subject. I will shortly tell their names and their company names. Mr. Güray Erol, General Manager of Res Anatolia Holding. Mr. Servet Akgün, Co-founder and Managing Partner of Pure Energy. Ms. Yasemin Kuytak, Director of KfW IPEX Bank. And Mr. Evren Aktaş, Project Management Office Manager of Borusan MBV. Before we start our discussion, I'll ask each speaker for a short introduction. Let's start with Mr. Güray Erol. Could you please briefly introduce yourself and your company?
Thank you very much, Selin Hanım. My name is Güray Erol. I'm directing the Turkish business of RES Group in Turkey. In the meantime, I am the president and the acting president of TÜREP, which is the Turkish Wind Energy Association. It is my 10th anniversary in the renewable energy business. So I have seen all of the experiences towards this decade in Turkey. So should I continue with my speech or leave the floor to others?
Oh, great, thank you. Now, normally we were supposed to continue with Mr. Servet Akgün, but I see that he's not here yet. So, Yasemin Hanım, please, could you introduce yourself and your company?
Sure. Thank you, Selin Hanım. My name is Yasemin Kuytak. I am heading the representative office of KfW IPEX Bank in Turkey. KfW IPEX Bank is the project and export finance arm of the German development bank KfW. And Turkey is a very important market for us, and we have been financing energy projects in Turkey, especially more intensely in the past 5 years with a portfolio of around 500 million euros. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasemin Hanım. Evren Bey, could you also introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Evren Aktaş. I'm a senior project manager and the project management office manager in Borusan EnBV Enerji. Our company is a joint venture between Borusan Holding and Energie Baden-Württemberg of Germany. And our company has been investing only in renewable energy, mainly in wind power plants since more than 10 years. As of now, we are completing 2 wind power plant projects with a total installed power of 200 megawatts. And with those completed, we will reach more than a 700 megawatt installed power in Turkey. 650 of it mainly is, or like approximately 650 megawatts is wind power plants, and we will be the biggest wind power plant investor in Turkey with that installed power in a couple of months' time, hopefully, according to our project management schedule.
That's great. Thank you very much. As we all know, YEKTEM, the Turkish feed-in tariff mechanism for renewable energy power plants, will come to an end mid-June this year, being already extended for a 6-month period. And what will happen next? So that's what we will discuss here today. Mr. Erol, could you please let us know your opinion on this subject?
Yes, with pleasure, dear panelists, dear audience. I would like to start with some figures, but easy, simple, but big figures. As we all know, Turkey has now 96 gigawatt of installed total generation capacity. The good news is more than 51% of that is from renewable energy. And within this mix, we have 8.8 gigawatt of wind, which is supplied by 332 wind farms, and solar with 6.7 gigawatt, thanks to a couple of thousands of solar plants. If we are curious, if we ask ourselves what is the main motivation behind this success, if we can call it as a success, not only because of the high numbers of power plants, but also the pace on reaching on that thousands of megawatts in a period of 10 years, plus local industry, which is now recruiting more than 20,000 people, white or blue collar in wind, similar numbers in solar, etc. That was for sure political willingness, YEKDEM, and the financeability of those projects. So just after setting the ground with these main items, what is next, which is your question. We are ending the first era of this feed-in tariff YEKDEM, and we are expecting to enter a second era, which is not yet fully defined. We are all aware that the next YEKDEM will be in Turkish lira, as the article in the Omnibus Law published by the Parliament House on November is stipulating. But what about details? We don't know yet. We are aware that several industry associations for solar, wind, geothermal, biomass, etc., they have been lobbying, or they have been proposing their minimum should be feed-in tariff figures. But in a common sense, we are again aware that those industries, brothers and sisters of the renewable energy, are not anymore asking for a proper feed-in tariff, in a sense that we are not anymore looking for a feed-in tariff which is higher than the market average, the merchant market price, except some marginal industries. As of today, it is not only the case for Turkey, it is the case for all of the developed and undeveloped countries. As solar and wind, they are advancing in the good path with low and lower break-even prices. They became really competitive to the conventional energy, and this is the reality, making us not to ask anymore a feed-in tariff, but at an anchor price. The anchor price is still the most valuable thing for us in order to finance our projects. At the end of the day, all wind energy projects should be financed with some different ratios on equity or debt. But in order to secure a lowest finance and a reasonable pricing on break-even prices from solar and wind, governments and or corporates, they do present long-term energy supply schemes in order to make additional capacities available. So what we would like to say, it's like, yes, the feed-in tariff is important. The next feed-in tariff in Turkey will be again important in order to convince ourselves once more to continue in the renewable energy industry. But also this is again important to see how it will be helpful for us to finance more and more projects and to keep the wind and solar and all related industries alive, producing, performing, and even exporting. The feed-in tariff will not be the unique solution, it's for sure. Thanks to the YEKA mechanism, which is now advancing forward, we will be also having YEKA basis capacities on the market. Plus, we do strongly believe that the corporate PPAs, in Turkish we use the abbreviation of YETA, which is somehow created by Dear Servet. So those three elements, or those three mechanisms, seem to be the next decade's major platforms to proceed forward. So it is not only the YEKDEM, it is not only the YEKA, it is not only the corporate PPA, but a kind of mixture, a reasonable mixture, aggressive but reasonable mixture of those three mechanisms should prepare ourselves for the future. Without forgetting one very important element, for sure, next to all those beautiful elements or tools, we do need to have capacities. If there are no projects, if there are no any regular release of projects and megawatts, whatever we will have in hand, kind of a nice feed-in tariff, beautiful YEKA announcements, or plenty of local companies, international companies ready to sign corporate PPAs, we cannot move forward. So I believe in this combination of four different elements, four different and major elements, we can still have plenty of business in Turkey for Turkey.
Great. Actually, at the beginning of your speech, I thought that you were more for YEKDAM only, but afterwards, it's good to hear from your side that there are different alternative mechanisms as well, and also all of them are required. And just one short question, in solar, maybe it's easier, let's say, to go with corporate PPAs for new capacity creation. But what about wind? I mean, for wind, do you think that YEKDAM is more necessary compared to solar?
Good question. This is also a question to underline the reality or the competition between solar to wind and vice versa. Although they are real sisters and brothers in terms of natural resources, as of today, since a couple of years' time, solar is currently jeopardizing wind energy because of the low break-even price and plus the ease of application on any dimensions. We don't really discriminate wind to solar in terms of corporate PPAs because for Turkey, it is obvious that wind power plants are offering more capacity factor, which means more predictable and I would say volume in energy to be supplied. But solar is also a good choice. At the end of the day, if the corporate PPA is a matter of pricing, plus the availability of long-term carbon-free, carbon-neutral energy, wind and or solar would be reasonable choices to be proposed by us, means that renewable energy companies to the distinguished consumers.
Thank you. I want to check if Servet Bey is there. Okay, I think I cannot hear him. So thank you. Then let's continue with Evren Bey, please. Could we get your opinion on the subject?
Thank you, Selen Hanım. Actually, Servet Bey has also joined us, but I think we can't hear him yet. Okay, let me start then.
Exactly, please.
Actually, Güray Bey summarized the situation very clearly. Thanks to him. I thought about also telling about a little benefits of this feed-in tariff mechanism, a solid, sustainable feed-in tariff mechanism, and what it benefited until now and how it will benefit us in the future. Of course, I mean, in addition to promoting the green energy in Turkey, renewable energy, and when we look at some other numbers, we see that, for example, 10 years ago, it was only 2.5 terawatt hours of generation we had from wind power plants in Turkey. And last year, in 2020, we had 24.5 terawatt hours of electricity generation from wind power plants, and that is 8.4% of the whole generation in Turkey. It has been a big effect, big positive effect. At the same time, decreasing the generation amount of the conventional thermal power plants, natural gas or exported coal, etc. Approximately 7 to 8% in these years. So it's a big promotion for the renewable energy. And also it's a big promotion for the private investments because although a feed-in tariff looking as an incentive seems to be like a guarantee, actually it gives all the risk on the shoulders of a private investor. Because as long as you can generate in an efficient power plant, you can have the payment for the electricity. If you cannot plan your power or the plant farm, wind farm, let's say, correctly, if you cannot efficiently invest in that, if you cannot find competitive, good level funding, you will be in a financial problem, and that is the private investor's problem rather than anybody else's. So it's not a guarantee, actually. It's a good way to promote the private investor and also the liberalization of the market, I think. And also another thing is as we know, Turkey lacks the capital accumulation. So we need especially foreign direct investments. This is very important. And for example, Borsa NMBV Energy is a just half and half investment joint venture of a German company and a Turkish company. So it is very beneficial that these foreign direct investments come to our country through these kind of sustainable, good incentive mechanisms. And as a part of the, or let's say as a partner to that, we also need to attract funding, and that is also from foreign sources, foreign financial institutions. And as we know, as everybody knows now, hopefully we are getting nearer to the end of this COVID era, and there will be a big financial easement all over the world, especially euro-based and dollar-based world. And we also hear and see in all of the media that many developed countries, European countries, and also US now with their new management, joining let's say the challenge fight against the climate change. So these financial easements, big funding sources, will most probably will try to find green investments to fund renewable energy or green-based investments. So it will be very important to have a new and sustainable feed-in tariff mechanism to attract that funding. In addition to that, one other thing Güray Bey mentioned is very important. He said over 20,000 people are employed, I think, in the renewable energy industry in Turkey. This is a very big development for Turkey. 10 years ago, we didn't have any blade factories, tower factories, maybe only one, let's say, manufacturing for the wind industry. And we didn't see local workers working at sites, installing turbines, commissioning turbines. Now, in all of our investment sites, we see that we have Turkey manufactured blades, towers. We know that now generators are also starting to be manufactured through YEKA projects. So I think it is a very important for developing the industry in Turkey, which will hopefully also act as a hub for the near geography. So it is very important. And also, I would like to point out that there will be this Green Deal mechanism in Europe, and will most likely be followed by the US, and generating renewable energy and manufacturing goods through using of that, offsetting carbon footprints, will be very important for Turkish industries trying to sell goods to European markets and American markets in the future, because they will put these standards into their local manufacturers, and in order to ensure the competitive balance, they will also ask for foreign countries to comply with their green deals. We can increase these items like dependency on foreign resources and also improving current account balance. And also one other thing, renewable energy power plants in the midterm and the long term will definitely decrease the electricity price. And that will be a very important item for the industry competitiveness for each industry. We even started seeing that now. For example, some natural gas power plants cannot keep up with the electricity price, which has decreased over the last couple of years. And we also have one power plant which is already out of feed-in tariff, and there will be others in the coming years. A number of projects will be getting out of feed-in tariff mechanisms. But even with that electricity price, those renewable energy power plants will start or will continue generating electricity with low prices, and that will have a big, hopefully big and positive impact on the cost of electricity overall in the overall manufacturing industries. So I can also continue with some ideas of what should be in place, but according to your mediation, Selena, if I can stop here and continue later.
Okay, just I want to ask a small question. As far as we know, Borusan MMV is 100% renewable energy company, and you want to continue like this. So also you mentioned that some of your wind plants, they've been already completed their 10 years period of YEKTAM, and now I think you will continue with some PPAs and so on. So could you also provide some information about how do you plan to position your company in the markets after June 2021? Of course, not so confidential things, but in general.
Other than this is being confidential, I am actually the investment side of the company. I am the project management office manager, but I can give some general idea. Of course, with the years coming, we only have now one power plant out of feed-in tariff, and there will be others. And with the others also coming out, sales and trading operations will be very crucial for the energy companies. And finding these PPA agreements, which Güray Bey mentioned, will be very important. And also creating bundles in order to decrease the unbalanced effect will be important. And also sales and trading structure, a good back office running the sales and trading operations will be very important from my point of view. Generally, our point of view, I can say. But actually, this is important because feed-in tariff mechanism actually is very beneficial for the repayment of that investment. As long as a good term is provided there with a sustainable level, even if it is in Turkish liras, with some escalation mechanisms which will also serve to the financial parties, it will not be a problem to continue with a lower price, let's say. It might affect IRRs, etc. But as long as the investment is has paid itself, then it will be a commercial operation which should be run efficiently in a competitive market.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, as Servet Bey is back here, I want to continue with him. Servet Bey, firstly, could you please shortly introduce yourself and your company? And also, we want to have your opinion on the post-June 2021, what will happen in the renewable energy market?
Thank you very much, and extremely sorry for all those technicalities. For some reason, things just go wrong sometimes. But I was luckily able to hear the panelists' view, and I'm glad to hear that, well, pretty much the arrows are showing very much the same direction now. So first of all, my name is Servet Akgün, and I'm one of the managing partners of Pure Energy. Pure Energy is a virtual power plant operator in Turkey. It is already operating a 2,000 megawatts of pure renewable fleet and doing all that, daily operations on a 24/7 basis. And we are also trying to be a pioneer player on the PPA place, especially in the light of what is going to kick in the market in the next years. So with that background, actually, well, obviously, I mean, I am more in favor of whatever is more market friendly, and let's say whatever is not really deteriorating the market price formations. So, I mean, of course, feed-in tariffs, it was a very important tool, very important mechanism for getting the renewable capacity online And like in every other part of the world, I mean, I would say rather the mostly advanced and emerging part of the energy world, I think also in Turkey it has ended its mission. So basically, a feed-in tariff is, of course, a very comfortable, very framed element in both financing and putting the capacities online. But I think we also have to get used to the idea of, well, given the very steep decreases in investment costs, I think, and also very competitive LCOE levels, we can manage without those tariffs. I think we should maybe start off thinking, yeah, well, there are other ways. So, but of course, when it comes to other ways, that's of course a different discussion for every single country, every single market. But for the Turkish market, I think I'm putting the distributed generation aside in this discussion. For the remaining utility scale capacity additions, the most important missing element is the options, or like capacity, capacity creation, or the way how capacity will be added to the system. So I'm more talking about connection agreements, or the amount of connections allowed by the TSO and so on. And I will just give you a quick example of Spain, which is very successfully doing the transition from the feed-in to the PPA world. For example, there you see the next 5 years, every type of fuel, how much of that will be optioned for the PPAs and so on. I think what is really missing, what we are all missing in the market, is the option schedules, or the option mechanisms for connection agreements. I'm again not referring to any sort of fixed payment, any sort of subsidy or anything. I'm more referring on the technical capacities here to connect. Once we have it, once we have that framework in place, which is, I think, pretty much a task between EMRA and TEİAŞ, of course, to coordinate and to announce to the market. Then the remaining is, okay, well, who needs power and who is there to develop a project and who wants to sell power? So it is, again, a very market-based approach. In the end, Evren Bey was putting it very rightly, that the industry will need clean power. There is no discussion around it. I mean, looking at what the trends are, and looking at what is coming from the EU friends, neighbors on the EU side, we will definitely need to transform, especially some sectors, into renewable power. And that is actually, I think, in a way, it's a nice thing to move the companies to get to that direction. So all in all, currently I see, let's say, a seller's market in terms of PPAs and so on, but that will be turning around, I guess. So what I can conclude here is, once we have the capacity auction mechanisms, connection agreement, the new connection granting concession mechanism is in place, and then again, once we have banks or financing institutions really step into the, let's say, more market-based PPA structures, with, of course, which also has credible off-takers on the delivery side, I guess we can already sort that transition phase. But even before that, we already have this a bit more than almost 2,400 megawatts of wind auctions, which was pretty much on negative prices. And for that, I mean, every month we are spending not sorting that issue out is, of course, not a good thing for the entire industry. I think that that issue should be also addressed. That issue should be also maybe transformed into a PPA structure, which is, of course, also being discussed in the policy making circles. But basically, losing time in that is, of course, not helpful for anyone. And I think that specific pipeline of all these negative priced wind concessions is a very good laboratory on how we can create something or curate something for the upcoming new capacity additions on the renewables. So I can maybe pass it on with that remarks to you, Selena. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Now we have all talked about, about post-YEKDAM and new mechanisms, alternative mechanisms, and so on. But we are all aware that if those mechanisms are not financeable or are not accepted by the banks or credit institutions and so on, they are not really applicable in real. So I'd like to now ask Yasemin Hanım for her opinion. What will happen after YEKDAM, in your opinion? And also, I mean, what type of financing mechanism do we need to be financeable from your side?
Thank you, Selena Hanım. Indeed, you touched on a very important topic. I think we can discuss about the structure of the market for hours, but in the end, financing is the key to realize these projects. I think Turkey has been very successful in coming up with projects, coming up with the right manufacturing facilities to support the renewable energy system. And of course, banks welcomed this really good mechanism and interest from the investors' side and government support. And with the help of, especially for the case of international lenders like us, with the help of export credit agencies, ECAs, mostly I can say from the European side, Euler Hermes and EKF from Denmark, a lot of projects have been financed. As I mentioned, our portfolio is quite full with these projects. We were able to finance very large wind portfolios with ECA cover. And there is continued interest from international lenders in the Turkish market. I think there is a good environment, but what we need is sustainability. Sustainability in the sense that there is a sustainable project pipeline, which I think we also, yesterday there was a webinar organized by Turkish Wind Association where the top management of all major wind manufacturers attended and discussed the Turkish market. I think being able to organize such an event with such high global management is an indication that there is a strong interest in this market. And what they also stressed out is that they need a sustainable flow of new projects in Turkey. Yes, it is a big export market. What is produced here is also being exported to the other markets, but at least I can say 1,000 megawatts of new projects is needed. And once you have that, the right way to finance it would be, or the easiest way to finance it would be with the support of the feed-in tariff mechanism. What is challenging for us in the period that is after 2021 June is that it's announced that it will be in Turkish lira. For international funding, it is not easy to access long-term Turkish lira. We don't have those long-term swap opportunities in Turkish lira. And even if you have that, the cost would be too high for the investors. As my fellow panelists were mentioning, there is a lot of interest in green finance all over the world. The interest rates in dollars and euros are extremely low. So there is a lot of money that can come in the form of foreign currency to these projects. But when it comes to Turkish lira, that is not going to be available. And I think the availability of Turkish banks to finance all these projects alone would be very limited. And so even if the Turkish lira YEKDAM comes into place, we need a proper escalation mechanism, which so far I personally couldn't really learn. Like, we don't know, it's a mystery to all of us. That's something we will need to see. But if there is a good escalation mechanism, if there is a convincing financing structure, there is a lot of interest from us and the ECAs. And there is one more additional benefit that is recently announced, is that the ECAs kind of became more flexible in their requirements about local content. In the past, you had to have like 50% or more coming from abroad, produced in that specific country. But I can say at least for the example of the German ECA Hermes, now 30% German production is enough. So that's something we can really benefit in from the Turkish perspective. And I hope we get the chance to do that from a finance perspective. So I don't want to take all the time, but happy to answer further questions.
Right, thank you very much. Now I also have a small question for Servet Bey. Servet Bey, I also asked similar question to Güray Bey. Do you think that regarding the PPAs for additionality, new capacity creation, there is a difference between different type of renewable energies? For example, would we say it would be easier for solar compared to wind, or compared to geothermal, etc.? What do you think?
Well, thanks a lot for the question. For geothermal and biomass, I have different opinions for Turkey. But for wind and solar, I guess this, I mean, both of them, in terms of LCOE and the expected market prices, they will still be very, I mean, not as lucrative as the feed-in, good old days of the feed-in, but it will be still lucrative and will have, have a return. But of course, between the two of those, as I said, I mean, currently what we have in wind is an auction 2.5 gigs of capacity, which will not be financed, most probably, within this financial conditions and the market prices. So, we taking all that pipeline into a PPA structure with a sound mechanism, which is of course giving some additional benefits to the off-taker and so on, can maybe, you know, save all these projects, and can also save 4 or 5 years of waiting time and so on, and waste of time. That is one, let's say, one additional advantage of wind in Turkey, because that's already auctioned and that can be twisted. But for solar, we still need the capacities to be concessioned and granted. So that will take some more time. But again, maybe linked to this, as Yasemin Hanım was mentioning about the Turkish lira yektem and difficulties around it, which is of course very right. I just want to also maybe shoot a little question on maybe, okay, well, let's say we have two options. First, you have this Turkish lira feed-in, which has also some escalation and all that. But also, let's say there is also an option for the capacity holder to go and sign a PPA with a decent off-taker for 10-15 years in an adjusted currency, in a nice formula, which would be also giving some comfort to the bank. Between those two, which one would a bank actually prefer? Because I think if the off-taker and if the project developer are there, if they are doing their job properly, and if they have already a nice track record, I assume that it is a nicer way, or let's say a safer way of just, you know, relying everything to a regulated revenue stream. Because in the end, we know that Yektem was such a great success. I mean, we had a lot of bumps on the way, but it was never revisited, the terms and conditions of Yektem, like in many countries. Turkish Yektem was always very prominent. There was no step back in the legislation, so everyone received whatever was supposed to be received and will be receiving, I guess, in the next years. So, but still now, when it comes to Turkish lira escalation, these terms, these parameters can be always a bit, let's say, a bit too flexible, in my opinion. So what would you prefer? Because again, I mean, even today's conditions, such structures are possible. I mean, Turkish legislation is not avoiding or blocking PPAs. It is possible. It is just a bit of awareness, a bit of hard work altogether, and then it will be popping up. I mean, this is just a general question, of course, to the panel. If you can maybe share also your views, because I see no reason why this shouldn't fly.
Okay, thank you. Another short question for Yasemin, actually. So your bank has a lot of experience in many countries, actually, not in Turkey. So Servet Bey also mentioned some alternative models. Is your bank also ready for alternative models?
Actually, our bank finances wind all over the world, and most of our financings are with a project finance structure, which we also implemented in Turkey, I can proudly say. Including this year, we were able to close an extension of an existing power plant with an ECA cover, Hermes cover, but with the project finance scheme. So when you are using a project finance scheme, of course, cash flow is the important part. And of course, if you have a feed-in tariff, you base your cash flow on the feed-in tariff. In markets where there is an absence of a feed-in tariff, where you have to kind of come up with creative solutions, there are projects that have those corporate long-term PPAs. That are used as the basis of the financing. So I think globally it is possible. For Turkey, I think we need to test it, and I think we will only be able to test it with smaller projects. But if you come to really big projects, which we have also financed in the past with several hundred megawatts, I think getting corporate PPAs with that size would be challenging for a market that is not even ready for 6 months PPAs at the moment. So I think the direction should be in that way, but maybe a little early for Turkey. But definitely something to think about.
Thank you very much. Now I think we're coming to the end of our period, so I'd like to ask each speaker for the closing remarks and 1 minute around, please, starting with Mr. Erol.
I would like to emphasize the potential and the possibility of having energy storage units next to the renewable energy power plants, which will probably change the game a lot, because the scarcity or the unavailability of capacities make our investors, developers too aggressive and create somehow very difficult balance to realize those projects. If in the next future, together with energy storage units, wind or solar power plant can act as a base load renewable energy like biomass or geothermal, then we may add, without expecting, without waiting tenders, etc., to the existing installed capacity. So this is probably the next big thing for the Turkish energy market, which is highly regarded or requested by TEİAŞ, the grid company, and EPDK. As we have seen plenty of amendments and modifications on the legal framework, regulatory framework, we are almost there. So there is only the opportunity, the real business opportunity is missing for us to launch this energy storage era to be launched.
Thank you. I totally agree with you. And Evren Bey, could you get your closing remarks? I can't hear you, but is it same for everybody?
Sorry. Actually, I agree with Servet Bey. The auction mechanisms to come is also very important, because we saw that in the last auctions in 2017, all the prices went to negative levels, and it doesn't mean for any kind of feed-in tariff mechanism from that point on. So I think, however, this new capacity generation system will be configured, it should be taken into account to have a feasible tendering, a competitive but feasible level of tendering mechanism. And I agree, investment costs for renewable energy power plants has come down. So a new mechanism might be lower, of course, but sustainability of it for a number of years to satisfy the financial requirements is important. Those are for the new YEKA, or new feed-in tariff mechanism, what I can say. In addition to that, I think carbon certification, and with Turkish new system YEKA certification will be an important item in the future as well. And by the way, we hear that the government office or the public office is also working on the new feed-in tariff, has a plan to, I think, announce it in February. There was a remark from the head of Energy Works Directorate about that. Maybe we'll hear more clear information in February about that. And one final thing, I would like to emphasize this every time. I think this renewable energy should be promoted in the public's point of, in the public eye. I think there's a requirement for that to be done through NGOs like TÜREK, and also government public offices. There should be a promotion, like a system, a mechanism that works, that explains that the renewable energy doesn't consume anything and doesn't have any waste, so it is very beneficial for the environment and the public and the future. I think this is very important for the future of renewable energy, in addition to the feed-in tariff mechanisms and technical and financial requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Servet Bey, could we get your closing remarks?
Sure. Thank you. I think first, I think we should get ready for a good farewell to the feed-in mechanism. Even in Turkish liras, it will not help, I think. First, and of course, I mean, maybe the timing of it, which is already like 28 days later than how it should be already officially announced, at least by the end of last year. It is, I know, all the 6 months extension and so on, but I mean, we're talking about long-term projects, and it is already late by anything in terms of announcements. So maybe it's a good sign that it will not be really something which the market should be relying on. As I said, the most important thing is to test this out already with the existing pipelines on the negative projects, negative price, and also the extensions. You know, the some of the wind parks, they have already got some extensions which will be selling directly to with spot prices. So that's also a very nice area to test these PPAs out, and we are also working on that. And these two specific areas will be, I think, laying the foundation for the upcoming PPA world in Turkey. And another important point is 7,000 megawatts of renewable power will be coming to merchant market. I mean, currently it's already 4.5, 5. It will be 7,000 by the end of this year. So all these power plants are already, they will be already demonstrating what can be done in terms of long-term deals. And of course, with all that, the most important thing is that, you know, the TSO, together with the regulator, they should come up with a decent capacity auctioning mechanism for the next 5 to even 6, 7 years, so that people can really, or players can really prepare and strategize themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Yasemin Hanım, your closing remarks, please. We can't hear you, I think.
I was on mute. We need a new capacity, we need auctions, we need a good mixture of both a good feed-in tariff system, new YECA projects, and hopefully the introduction of the corporate PPAs, where we will have the chance to finance more projects in Turkey. But I think the regulatory framework should be more visible, more clear, and predictable. So that would be the key to a better renewable energy financing scheme in Turkey.
Thank you very much. So this was a great discussion, in my opinion. Thank you to our speakers for their valuable insights on the subject, and also to our audience as well for their attendance. I'm closing the panel, and I wish you all a nice day. Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Happy and healthy day.
Bye.
Thank you.